Hello, everybody. We're doing respiratory today. As you remember, when we talked about back then in AP1, where I think AP1 or AP2, one of those, the reason we breathe, one of the main thing is to have get ATP through the electron transport chain. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the anatomy part of the respiratory system. First, there is the First, there is conducting system, and the respiratory part. So the conductive part is to remove the pathogen, as you see here, warm up the air, which is right up here. And the respiratory part here is where gas actually exchange in the lungs, in the alveoli. Okay. So let's start with the outside. Okay, the external nose. There's nasal cavity. You guys remember the ethmoid bone, okay? And the conchas. The conchas are in there. It helps warm up and moisten the air. Okay, there it is. These are the nasal conchas, okay? Sinuses are air pocket as well, right there and right there. It also line up the skull, okay? Right there, lining up the weight of the skull. Okay, nasal cavity epithelium. The epithelial tissue in the nasal cavity are pseudo-stratified columnar, and if you remember, there is a lot of goblet cells in there. Okay, a lot of goblet cells, and these goblet cells, it actually produces mucus and traps, debris and bacteria and all that stuff. And there is it's always beating. Okay, you see the little cilias on top. Okay, got little cilias right there. Okay, little cilias or little hair. It's always beating out toward the the mouth, or that's why every time it's cold on the outside, the cilia actually slows down a little bit. That's why in the cold weather we always have a little bit of nose dripping, because it is colder and it irritates the nasal lining and all that. Okay. Next part would be the pharynx area. Okay. It's got muscular tube with 3 regions for air to pass. So there are 3 regions: nasal pharynx, oral pharynx, and the laryngeal pharynx. Okay. So it's divided into 3 parts right here. This is the nasal pharynx part. This is the oral pharynx, where the mouth and all that is attached. And here is the laryngeal pharynx. Okay, right here. So let's look at the larynx. The larynx, if you look at here, it is this part, okay? It's got a very thick and big cartilage, okay? One of the biggest cartilage there is called the epiglottis in the larynx area, okay? Another one is the thyroid cartilage, okay? Thyroid cartilage. Okay, and this prominence, it is the Adam's apple. Okay, and there's a cricoid cartilage right here. So if you look here, okay, this is the side view. This is opposite of this one. Okay, you see the epiglottis going toward the back. It is to block food from going into the airway. Okay, so there are in the lab, we will see these guys, the cuneiform cartilage, the cornicula, and the arytenoid cartilage right here. Okay, 3 pairs of small ones. Those are the ones. Okay, and the large epiglottis, and then the thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage. So here, looking down your throat. Okay, looking down your throat. Here are your true vocal cord. This is what stretches and when you make sound. Okay, the glottis. Okay, this part is called the glottis, and that's the epiglottis right there, and that's your tongue. Okay. Vestibular fold, true vocal cord, and space between the vestibular, the false vocal cord. Okay, this is called the false vocal cord. Okay, our folds of mucosa, true, are attached to the thyroid and arytenoid and oscillate to produce sound. Okay, so this is your true vocal cord. Again, it is attached to the thyroid and the arytenoid, which is, we saw earlier, right here. Okay, that is the vocal cord. If you're looking down, straight down. Okay. Again, that's the larynx. Here's the trachea. Trachea, a flexible cylinder tube, anterior to the esophagus. So if you look at the side view, here's the trachea, and here is the esophagus. So when we swallow food, it closes up, so the food goes straight to the back and not go into your lungs. It is also semi-rigid, okay, so that it can keep its shape. And again, there's a left lung and the right lung. Here you have, these are called the primary bronchi, secondary, okay, and then there's tertiary and terminal and all that. We'll look into all that. Note the type of tissue and cilia. Okay, again, remember, they're beating and beating outward. Okay, they're beating outward for you to swallow. Okay, so you always getting trash out of there. That's why sometimes we have mucus. Okay, the bronchial tree, now they are independent. Okay, the left and the right lungs become independent from here on. Okay, primary bronchi enter the hilum. This is called the hilum, where it enters. Leads to the secondary and tertiary. Lots of intermediate. When the tubes are small, they become bronchioles. So starts with bronchi, primary, secondary, okay, and then smaller and smaller ones are called bronchioles. We will see. Okay, we'll see in a minute. So the conducting move air to the respiratory. So first we have the right and left primary bronchi. We saw that. Okay, right and left primary bronchi. Secondary, then tertiary. Cartilage replaced. Oh, once you pass the tertiary, okay, it's not cartilage anymore. It's replaced by smooth muscle. Okay, it's replaced by smooth muscles in the bronchioles. And then you have the terminal bronchioles. Here's the terminal bronchioles. Here are the smooth muscles. And finally, it will enter these thing called the alveoli. Okay, so this whole bunch is called the alveolar sac. Each individual is called alveolar, and each one is connected, with alveolar pores. Okay, so this is where gas exchange happens in the alveolar. Okay, and the reasons you have these pores is so that each one is kind of connected, so that it doesn't collapse. It will maintain the pressure. Okay, again, there are these arteries and veins attached to it, capillaries. Okay, so only one blood vessels can go through. So about 1 red blood cells. Okay, and then that's where the exchange happens. Okay, now inside the alveolar is also filled with something called a surfactant. Surfactant is like a soap. soapy material. So a NICU that the surfactant is not developed yet, their lungs are not able to support themselves and they will collapse. So once they can breathe on their own, it is filled with surfactant. Imagine a little bubble that can hold up its shape because of that tension. Okay, so it's called surfactant. Okay, there are three types of cells roaming around. Okay, type 1, type 2, and macrophages. Reason for the macrophage is because sometimes we will inhale things that are not supposed to. Okay, type 1 are the major ones. Simple squamous epithelium with elastic basement membrane. Type 2 is secrete surfactant. That's the one I was talking about, to reduce the surface tension, to keep the shape. Again, in the trachea, okay, it is cartilage. Once it reaches the bronchioles, it is replaced by smooth muscles. And then when it comes to the alveoli, it is simple squamous. If you remember in chapter 4 or 5 of the AP1, when we talk about different skin cells, things like that, simple squamous is just one layer of cells for gas exchange, or simple diffusion, and things like that. Okay, some cilia and mucus are replaced by macrophages. So the membrane, the respiratory membrane, okay, which is the capillary membrane, and also with the alveolar membrane, it is very, very thin for simple diffusion. Okay. Here again, picture of the lung. Okay, the one with the indentation is the left lung. Okay, entering is called the hilum. Okay, the primary bronchi, and secondary bronchi, left and right, and then secondary